You're listening to the In This League Fantasy Podcast Network at inthisleague.com. Download, lock in, and puck up. Hockey is here, and we've got the #1 podcast for fantasy hockey. It's the Roto Hockey Show with your hosts, Tony Healey and Brian Matthews.
And boom goes the dynamite.
Hello and welcome to the Roto Hockey Show. I'm Tony Healey here with Brian Matthews, ready to talk a little fantasy hockey. Episode 120.
Phew.
What is happening?
120. I feel like we were just like in the 80s talking about rando hockey players like Brent Burns, and then we shot into the hundreds pretty quickly.
Well, you know what they say.
Yes.
Episode 120. If you make 120, you've made it.
Is that what they say? Yeah, that sounds right. No, it's been crazy. Like, what are we, week 18 right now?
Week 18 of the fantasy hockey season.
Nutty.
19 some places, 18 others.
Yeah.
You know how that goes.
Well, a tad goofy, but as we said last week, we're getting it's getting late early.
Yeah, we've had some craziness happen in one of the Roto Hockey Show leagues, Brian.
Oh.
We do, and
tell.
I think before we get into the episode, we had a trade vetoed. Okay. The first place team was getting Vladimir Tarasenko in a trade. Okay. The seventh place team, who is not out of the playoffs by any means, he's very close because he's right on my tail, is getting Matthew Tkachuk, Matt Duchene, and Sam Reinhart.
Okay.
And the trade was vetoed, and it was vetoed very quickly by like everyone in the league. I didn't even get my chance to vote because the votes came in so fast on that. How do you feel about that trade being vetoed?
I say it all the time. I'm not a big veto person.
I know. When you look at the three players coming back to Hamburger Train, now keep in mind they're in seventh place, so one player's not going to make the difference on their roster.
Yeah.
They need depth at that point.
Yeah.
Are these three depth players enough value for Tarasenko? Matthew Tkachuk, Matt Duchene, and Sam Reinhart.
Sure. Yes, yeah. I think so. I think it is. And especially because Duchene's been playing well lately and Reinhart's been on fire lately. It makes that trade more palatable. And so you're obviously giving up an A-plus first-round player for a bunch of B-level at best players, but two of them are playing excellent right now, and Tkachuk gets you some other categories and is a decent fantasy option. So sure, I have no problem with that trade.
See, I it's not a trade that I would hit the accept button on myself personally, but I don't think it's
move Tarasenko, but I see what this person's going for. So
yeah, no. So, but the best part of the whole story is one of the other league mates in our league chat apologized for the trade and you know, the whole nine. He said, I was hammered last night when I offered this trade.
Wow.
Like that'll teach me to drink and hit buttons on my phone. It was ridiculous of me to do this, the whole nine, right?
Mm-hmm. Well,
the trade gets vetoed, and then he looks and he goes, wait a minute, my trade's still there. We weren't even talking about my trade.
Oh, that's special right there.
I did enjoy that.
Wow.
And just for pure enjoyment.
Yeah.
The actual trade that looks like it's going to go through, I don't think it's going to get vetoed, is one player is giving up Matthew Dumba and Nicholas Backstrom.
Yeah.
And they're getting back Bo Horvat and Alex DeBrincat. On the surface, you look at what Backstrom does and you're like, ugh,
yeah,
that seems like a lot, right?
Right.
Except Backstrom hasn't been that good lately. He really has not been good. DeBrincat's got 21 goals on the season already.
Mm-hmm.
Dumba has been good as of late, but Bo Horvat's been rookie of the year. So, you know, if you got defenseman to burn, I say, hey, go for it.
All right.
Again, not something I necessarily would do, but I don't think it's in the veto range for me as well.
Concur.
All right. Let's let's get into the meat and potatoes here. Folks, if you're listening to the podcast, you likely found us on iTunes, SoundCloud, or through our partners, the In This League Fantasy Podcast Network or the Grandstand Sports Network. Hopefully you subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, SoundCloud, TuneIn, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Stitcher, or whatever podcast app you use. And don't forget to submit your reviews of the podcast on iTunes and all the other sites that have reviews. We have a bunch of new listeners this year, and we enjoy the feedback, and we're happy to mention you on the show. All right. No mailbag this week.
No mailbag. No mailbag. We're going to go right to the player news. Let's go right to it. And then we have news. We'll do our player news, and then we'll give show player news. Jesus, I can't speak. Just go. Take over for me.
We are going to talk about injury news. And we're going to start with your Buffalo Sabres, Brian.
Yes.
Jack Eichel goes down.
Yeah.
4 to 6 weeks with an ankle injury. Technically, I think he's technically indefinite.
Yeah.
But the timetable seems to be 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah. And Housley gave an update today on his radio spot and was saying that Eichel feels better than when he did this last year, blah, blah, blah. But, I mean, the Sabres aren't really playing for anything. So do you rush him back? I say no. I think they take their time, that the injury period of 4 to 6 weeks sounds pretty legit. I mean, at that point, you're talking maybe you get him back for the finals of fantasy hockey. So,
well, Joe Yearden said on Twitter that it seems like the Sabres it's not likely that they're going to shut him down for the rest of the year, and that he could be back, quote, sooner than not.
All right.
So maybe the injury isn't as bad as they initially thought.
That could be. Yeah.
Joe Yearden's a pretty good. He's dialed in.
Fine. Yeah. No, he knows his stuff, and I don't think he'd go out there unless he knew from someone inside the team that they were optimistic about it. So again, I don't know why you play him, but that's just me.
All right, out of Buffalo.
Yes.
We're going to move on to Calgary. From a number one center to a number one goaltender, Mike Smith, his groin. He pulled his groin.
Yes, he did.
Yeah. So he's not going to skate in Thursday's game. We're recording this on Wednesday, February 14th. So Thursday's game against Nashville, he won't be able to play. That's the second game in a row. He's day-to-day. I guess the MRI was good. So be watching out for that. It stinks that Calgary loses him because he's been really good this year.
Mm-hmm.
I know that I was on record this year saying I didn't think he was going to be the number one guy the whole season. I was obviously wrong. Mike Smith, that stinks. You're just going to have to sit and wait. Corey,
yeah, I don't know. I mean, Rittich, I don't even know if Rittich is worth a grab. He's given up, I think, 4 goals in 2 of his last 4 starts. So, I mean, he's going to be the man. So I feel like if you're a Mike Smith owner, you might have to roll with him unless you find another guy who's going to be a starter out there. So,
yeah,
I mean, Rittich does not do it for me.
Neither does he do it for the Calgary Flames as well.
Oh, well.
All right, moving on to Chicago. Corey Crawford was on the ice finally with his teammates for the morning skate on Monday. That is fantastic news. They still have no timetable for his return, but I can tell you they need him back sooner rather than later. So it's good news to see him there. It doesn't look like he's going to be shut down the rest of the season. Well, at least we're hoping, but who knows what goes on behind the scenes. So Corey Crawford, that's something to keep an eye on, watch. He could have been dropped in leagues, and if he's been dropped and he's skating, maybe it's time to add an IR him if you got a spot. Next up, let's talk about the New York Rangers defenseman Ryan McDonough a little bit here. Now, he's an interesting player because, you've got the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Boston Bruins very heavily involved in inquiring about him. And he's sidelined right now with an upper body injury. He's day to day. I wonder, would the Rangers really trade him inside the Eastern Conference? I mean, I wonder what Tampa would be giving up to get him. Do you think a Yanni Gourde or something like that is a piece that they would have to give up to get him?
I don't know. I mean, Gourde, I loved him coming into the year. He looks like he could potentially hit 30 goals, and I certainly didn't expect that. I mean, he lit it up in the AHL last year, did awesome in the AHL playoffs, so kind of a foreshadowing of what his potential is, but that doesn't always translate, but you got to trust Tampa's minor league system at this point. And do they have enough? Do you worry about Palat, Tyler Johnson, Killorn, Paquette, other guys that have been there for a while with Tampa that now they're getting a little too long in the tooth? You can't rely on them, and you're going to need that influx of
talent,
youth scoring. And when you have someone like Sergachev on the back end, do you need to go get Ryan McDonagh?
Well, for the playoff push this year, they seem to think so. My question, I mean, I look at Tampa Bay and I just wonder what kind of a deal they could work out for him. You look at a team like Boston, I feel like Boston has more of the pieces that New York would be interested in taking.
Yeah, and I don't know. The more I look at Tampa's defense, I don't think they're going to want to add a McDonagh who's been banged up to a defensive core that already has Strawman, who's had injury problems, Hedman coming back from injury, Braden Coburn, who's old, Girardi, who's old, Andre Suster. Like, I don't see it there. I could be wrong.
I don't know. I mean, they're the two teams, Boston and Tampa, that seem to have the most interest. I mean, it's not like he's useless. He's got.
Oh, agreed.
I mean, he had 42 points last year. He's playing well this year with 26 points in 49 games. I mean, he's great defensively, and he's not inept offensively. I mean, if you're looking at winning the Stanley Cup, a guy like Ryan McDonagh in your lineup and pushing out somebody like Girardi, you know what I mean? It makes sense. And they've got one more year.
How fitting would that be? Former teammates, and you're going to use McDonagh to bump out that guy.
Seriously. So Ryan McDonagh, just keep an eye on his upper body injury. This could be one of those things where they're holding him out longer than needs to be just to facilitate a trade. Yeah. So he doesn't get hurt. All right. Moving on to the Philadelphia Flyers, not Eagles. Sorry, folks. We're done talking Eagles.
Go Birds.
Brian Elliott is expected to miss 5 to 6 weeks after he underwent successful core muscle surgery.
Yeah, that
sounds terrible.
Unpleasant. Yeah.
That's worse. No, it's not worse than the pubic plate, but
that was bad.
That was pretty bad.
Oh man. Why'd you have to bring that up? No one
couldn't resist that. It's terrible, a core muscle injury. So we're going to talk about Michael Neuwirth later in the podcast, but you know, that's somebody to go out and get. I mean, he's played well. I mean, the problem with Neuwirth is he's hot and cold so much. It's quite awful to watch. Patrick Hornquist of the Pittsburgh Penguins has finally been added to the injured reserve list. It's retroactive to I don't remember, January 23rd or something like that. So he is he's ready to he's eligible to come back whenever he's ready to, but he's considered week to week right now. So it's no surprise that he's been moved to the IR. I mean, the guy's got 16 goals and 31 points in 49 games, plus all those hits, shots on goal. It hurts to lose a guy like Hornquist down the stretch. Yeah. So at least you can IR him. Well. I mean, I'm holding on to him. Even if I don't have an IR spot, I'm holding on to him.
Yeah, it's like a lot of guys on the IR. It doesn't hurt at this point to keep even guys who have been on it forever, like Jeff Carter or Shea Weber.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's one thing to make room for players that have recently been put on, but like you said, grab a Corey Crawford just in case. If you have the room, it's not a bad speculative play heading into the stretch run here.
Absolutely. Tomas Hertl He left Tuesday's game against Arizona after he crashed into the board. He only skated 7 minutes and 16 seconds of ice and never was able to return after that crash. The fun part to that happening, if there is a fun part, was Brent Burns got moved up to play forward for some of
who got moved?
Brent Burns.
That's what I thought.
Moved up to play forward for some of the game. That's pretty cool, and we haven't seen that in a few years. I mean, we know he can do it, but boy, you just look at centers going down for the San Jose Sharks, and you're like, sheesh.
Well, they had moved Hertl. I mean, the problem is that Hertl had been playing center. Then they moved him. Then he was on a wing on that Couture and Kevin LeBanc line, and they had been playing well, and apparently they can't have nice things.
No. I mean, Joe Thornton going out, you lose Hertl. It's like now you got Pavelski back to center, Logan Couture at center, who both guys play wing a ton. You know what I mean? They're just moving people all over the place. It's crazy talk right now in San Jose. And last but not least, we're going to talk about the Vegas Golden Knights. Eric Haula, he did not skate Tuesday because he had the flu. The flu is going around everywhere. So he's not going to be on the IR. Just keep an eye on it. You're not dropping him. He's got 40 points in 51 games, including 21 goals this season.
You look at some of the guys on Vegas and just sneaky good this year, guys completely under the radar, players the past month that have just put up such good stats. I mean, him, David Perron, you look at the assists Perron has had over the past 14 days.
Unreal.
It's wow, look at that. Who knew that was going on? It's very much kind of below the radar. Not a lot of promotion on those guys. Maybe Marchessault, Neal, but the rest of them just quietly having pretty solid seasons.
Gerard Gallant has really done a fantastic job coaching a team that McPhee put together. I feel like this team that McPhee put together was the perfect Gerard Gallant team. This is exactly the type of guy he is, and he coaches the players the way they need to be coached. There's nobody taking over that team like I'm a $10 million guy. There's a bunch of $3 and $4 million guys with a few $6 million guys saying, let's do this together, guys. You know what I mean? You look at the injuries that they fought through this year, too. I mean, even now they have a bunch of guys that are NHL players on the IR. We talked about all their goalie injuries early in the season, but Haula again, Subban, another goalie who's played great when he's been in, William Carrier, Spiza, Clayton Stoner. I'd say David Clarkson, but we don't have to. And Mikael Grabowski, who has played in the NHL and done well. He's had flashes of being well. He hasn't played all season. He's had a concussion. He's been out. So it surprises me, and you're right. The Vegas Golden Knights do not get the due that they deserve. I'm excited for them in the playoffs this year. It'll be interesting to see what they can do. All right. Yeah. Now that depressing segment's over.
Yes.
We're going to move right in to the Sunday streamers.
But first,
we
got to give folks our news.
Oh, that's right. We do. We should.
Our news. Bad planning on our parts that we are both taking advantage of the President's Week to go on vacation to warmer climates.
We are.
So what that means to you folks out there in listener land is no podcast next week. Now, I know you're all depressed, and I think you can keep it together and you can handle it for a week. But what we'll do is we'll post some stuff on Twitter and post some stuff on the Patreon page to make sure that you do have some Sunday streamers, some ad drops to consider next week. So you won't hear the sultry sounds of our voice, but you will get some of our fantasy hockey analysis. It will just be on social media rather than the airwaves.
That's right. And don't forget, if you want that extra stuff that we're going to pump out for next week to our patrons, you have to become a patron of our podcast.
And don't forget the group. I was going to say Groupon.
No,
it's not Groupon.
No, we're
not sending out coupons.
Sorry. No, group me.
There we go.
You have me thinking Groupon now. It's ridiculous. Yeah, our Group Me page, our Group Me room has been fantastic. All the patrons have been invited. Most of them have already joined. We've had question after question going crazy in the chat. People answering. We've set up draft tournaments for it. It's through it. It's been fantastic. So if you want to hang out with a passionate group of fantasy hockey fans, just become a patron of our show. I will add you to our group and we'll be good to go.
Nice.
Yes.
All right.
So
Sunday streamers.
All right, Brian. What do we got this week?
All right, so as you folks know, we are going to give you the low-owned players to add to your weekly matchups to give you the edge heading into the weekend and Sunday. 7 games on tap this Sunday, Tone, so a nice slate for the folks out there. So still going to be some movement in those weekly matchups, and Tone, as we said, it's coming down to the wire. We have week 18 wrapping up, then you've got 3 or 4 weeks, depending on your league, before the playoffs start. So it's going to be vital to get that win this week and then head into next week with some momentum for your team. So still time to make up ground for you folks on the bubble or just outside the playoffs. So 7 games this Sunday. Here's what we've got. We've got Dallas at San Jose. Edmonton will be in Colorado. Florida will be in the Great White North of Winnipeg. New Jersey is going to be playing Carolina at Carolina. The Flyers will be in Madison Square Garden Sunday afternoon to play the Rangers. The Penguins will be in Columbus to play the Blue Jackets. And then the original 6 matchup, the Toronto Maple Leafs visiting the Detroit Red Wings.
Love it. Love the original 6 matches.
Yeah, they're always good. What do you got for you looking for points on Sunday, Tone?
This for me was pretty simple. I am looking at this Winnipeg, Florida game. Winnipeg at home, Florida on the road. Matthew Perreault's 25% owned. He's playing on the Scheifele line with Blake Wheeler. Plus he's getting second unit power play time. Means he should get plenty of chances to score. In his last 11 games, he's got 2 goals and 6 assists. But in his last 3 games, he's getting over 19 minutes a game. He's looked really strong since Scheifele's return. He even assisted on both of Scheifele's goals against Washington. If 25% owned Matthew Perreault is available, I will happily take a chance on him against Florida at home. All right, Brian, that brings it to you.
I like it. I'm playing a hunch here. I'm going to go to that Toronto-Detroit game, like I said, and the Toronto offense playing terrific lately. As we're recording tonight, the Leafs, what's the score of the Leafs game? 6-3 they won today with a hat trick for Nazem Kadri. So the Maple Leafs just en fuego right now. And the way that they've been playing, 4 goals the other night against Tampa, 6 goals the other night against Ottawa, 7 goals against Anaheim, 5 goals against the Islanders, 4 against the Rangers, 4 against Dallas. I mean, it just reads like they've been playing in like track meets. And given that, I like the chances against a Detroit team that kind of bottom third easily on goals against this season. And so who else to look to? We want a low-owned player. Obviously, all the big guns on Toronto are taken, but Zach Hyman, 17% owned, rolling on that top line with Austin Matthews and little Willie Nylander. Last week, he had a goal and an assist in the game, so not much since. I did not see his line in tonight's box score yet, but again, I call it a hunch. I like their offense, and when you're riding shotgun on a line like that, there's always a chance that you could sneak a few points here or there.
Just to fill folks in, Detroit 10th in the league in goals against right now. 10th worst.
There we go.
10th worst in the league in goals against. So right at that bottom third mark.
Yeah,
nailed it.
All right, no points tonight for Zach Hyman, but he did have 3 shots on goal. So
you just wanted to say Hyman.
A decent night, but all the goals came from Kadri, Marner, and Dominic Moore making an appearance in the timeline.
I don't know how he's still in the league, but
I was just thinking the same thing. I'm like, man,
for him.
Sticking around. Good for him is right. All right, Tony, penalty minutes. There are those scrappy banger fantasy hockey leagues out there that still use the PIMs. So if they need some help, where are you going?
This is pretty simple. Michael Healey, 1% owned of the Florida Panthers.
Oh, yeah.
He leads the league in penalty minutes. Florida is second in the league with 11 minutes and 38 seconds per game in penalty minutes. They also lead the league with 31 majors. Winnipeg has Matt Hendricks, who has 4 majors on the season so far. So I feel like he'll answer the bell to Michael Healey if needed. Plus, Dustin Byfuglien's always good for a scrap every once in a blue moon.
Yeah.
Listen, you need penalty minutes, take the number 1 guy in the league, Michael Healey.
Yeah.
It's pretty simple.
Tough to turn that down. All right, I am going to go with the Edmonton Oilers. The Oilers' 8th most penalty minutes in the league. Colorado, the 10th most penalties against. So I sense a potential for some friction. And so Zach Cassian, our old friend, only 1% owned. And you know that you can count on him to get under his opponent's skin. And apparently he did that last week or 2 weeks ago in Calgary in that crazy game that he racked up 37 penalty minutes in. That's a month's worth.
Listen, he's still on an NHL roster, so good for him.
Yeah. So he's still plugging away. If he gets the start, you always have to double check with guys like Healey, Cassian, if they're not getting a healthy scratch. But again, I think Edmonton on the road that you could see, especially with some of the guys that Colorado have. In fact, you're going to be talking about one of them. They used to be teammates.
This is true.
All right, hits, Tone. You're going with the guy I had last week.
Yeah, I'm going with your guy, Nikita Zardov, 9% owned. Colorado Avalanche at home against the Edmonton Oilers. Zardov is 4th in the league in hits, and Edmonton really likes to play a physical game. Edmonton actually leads the league in hits, so I'm going to look for Zardov to match Edmonton's physicality. He'll also get you a few blocks. You're not going to count on him for offensive production, but he does kill penalties. So 19 minutes a night are really productive for him in the hits and blocks category. So Nikita Zardov, listen, again, 9% owned, 4th in the league in total hits. So,
all right, now that you're done talking about him, I'll let you know that his name is Nikita Zadorov. But
no.
No. I figured I'd let you go. I wasn't going to correct you. I just wanted to
Zardov.
Okay, that's like reminds me of the stuff for
skis.
Yeah, you're mixing the two.
Zardov and now I can't think of it. Now I'm just thinking of Zardov, but yeah, Zardoz.
That's what you're mixing up. You're mixing up
liquid Teflon,
ski wax Teflon for the Colorado Avalanche defenseman. All right, I am going with a defenseman myself who is in the Flyers and Rangers game, and I'm not going with Radko Gudas. I'm going with Robert Hagg. Only 7% owned, but again, I like this matchup. In the past 10 games, Hagg has had 28 hits, and he's had a couple 7-hit games in there, a couple 5-hit games in there. So again, I've recommended him earlier this year, and he's come through. So again, this New York Philly rivalry, a good time to break him out. And Gudas is another play here as well. If you want to grab him, he's just more highly owned. So I figured Hagg would be the under-owned performer and put up very similar stats as Gudas. So
Gudas, I hate to say this because I really, really hate to say this, but Gudas has actually been playing well lately. I mean, he's actually put a bunch of games. He's put a bunch of shots on net, I think, like over the last 2 weeks. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Gudas is in the top 25 in shots on goal for defensemen, which is amazing.
I don't know what's going on in the Wooter down there in Philly, but Gostisbehere, I think in the past 2 weeks, is the number 1 ranked fantasy player. Gudas has been playing great. Provorov's had a great season. So,
who was the guy from the Philadelphia Eagles that had that insane speech?
Jason Kelce.
Maybe Jason Kelce's doing the pregame speech.
Yes, that is. Get you pumped up. Get you fired up.
Because he's a defensive guy, right?
He's a center. Offensive lineman. But he's that, that type of, he's got the personality of somebody on the Flyers.
Listen, I play fantasy football and I'm pretty good at it, but I don't need to know what offensive linemen are. I don't play in linemen.
He's the best center in the NFL. There you go. That's all you need to know.
That's great.
That is not hyperbole. That is facts, bro.
I don't think I can name another. Jeff Saturday still in the league? Is he?
No, he's on ESPN now, and he looks like half the man he used to be.
Oh, you did not.
I did bring that out.
All right.
Stone Temple Pilots lyrics.
God, I'm going to have that stuck in my head for the rest of the podcast now. Nice. I've got the tune and everything. I'm going to have to go break out 11 gracious melodies.
Oh, all right. Get this thing back online.
All right, back to fantasy hockey and blocks. Andy Green, 1% owned of the New Jersey Devils. He's third in the league in blocks with 127. New Jersey's playing Carolina, who leads the league in shot attempts at 5-on-5. Andy Green also plays on the penalty kill. So what does that say to you? Blocks.
He's out there for a lot. Hence why he's third in the league. So
absolutely. And Carolina, no, they throw everything at the dang net. So all right, nice. Where are you headed?
I like my guy a lot here, and someone that I considered having as an ad this week, to be honest with you. So if you do grab him for Sunday, feel free to hang on to him. But it's Greg Pattern of the Dallas Stars. He is only 4% owned, but he has been an absolute machine over the past 10 games. This is like when I was preaching about Alex Edler, and some of you listened to me about how well he was playing. Well, Greg Pattern is in that pattern. Come on, that was a freaking layup. I don't even get the rim shot on that one. That was pretty bad.
Not earned. Greg Pattern, 20 shots on goal in 6 games over the last 2 weeks. Yeah. That's good enough for 14th. And Radko Gudas, I said, was top 25. He's 21st with 18 in 8 games. So,
well, guess what? During that same time frame, Tone, 32 hits and 28 blocks, which leads the league during that period. So the guy, just absolute monster peripheral stats right now. So you want to add him for hits, he's going to chip in. But grab him for the blocks, same thing. Playing a San Jose team on the road that has been playing better of late. So,
and I'll tell you,
he's going to contribute across the board, which is nice.
He will, and I'll tell you this about Greg Pattern. Watching him in Montreal for as long as I did, he has a highly underrated shot from the point. He really can shoot the puck pretty hard, and he's fairly accurate. He does get pucks through a lot of tight spaces.
That's okay. You're okay. There's no phrasing there.
Yeah, I was worried. I didn't know where I was headed.
I like that you tiptoed that down.
I did. Good. So Greg Pattern, a little underrated. Problem is he's really inconsistent. So if he's on a hot streak, ride him hard, put him away wet.
Wow, man, you're like fighting to get them in there.
Phrasing.
All right. Yeah. Wow, it's been a while.
That hurt.
All right, let's go to goalies on Sunday that potentially could be starting some back to the ass end of the back-to-back.
All right, 7 teams playing back-to-back this Saturday and Sunday. We have the Detroit Red Wings at Nashville, and then home against Toronto, Edmonton at Arizona and at Colorado, Florida at Calgary and at Winnipeg, the New Jersey Devils at Tampa Bay and at Carolina, New York Rangers at Ottawa, at Philly, Pittsburgh home against Toronto, and then at Columbus, Toronto at Pittsburgh, and then at Detroit. So we've got...
I think there's one name that stands out to me right now, and that's Curtis McElhinney, based on how Toronto's playing. I know that's a road game, but Detroit's offense does not frighten me. I think the Leafs have given up 3 goals on the season in the 2 games they've played Detroit. So
listen, if you're taking Curtis,
you're almost guaranteed a W. So
on Sunday, if you're taking McElhinney, you're doing it just to get the win. If you're close in like goals against average and save percentage, you're walking a tight wire that's pretty thin. So
big time.
Listen, Tristan Jarry has played really, really well. I know they're at Columbus, but Pittsburgh's fighting for the playoffs. Columbus hasn't been playing great. I would have no issue starting him. I do not want the Detroit goaltenders.
No,
I do not want Edmonton's Al Montoya.
What about Andrei Pavlik?
Oh, man. The Rangers are just so bad, and Philly's been scoring so much.
Yeah, all right.
It's not a great slate.
Yeah, to be honest, Philly doesn't have the back-to-back that the Rangers do either.
No.
Yeah, I got to say McElhinney or Jarry.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Pretty easy there because I don't want to touch some of those other games. But, I mean, again, if you're in a predicament and you got to start other guys, obviously there's going to be some – you could have potentially Eddie Lack going back to Carolina.
I don't know.
Right.
Just no.
Okay.
Eddie Lack scares me now.
Well, I know. He scares Carolina. That's why they got rid of him.
There's no way.
All right.
Not with a team that shoots that much.
All right, on to the ad drops for next week, Tone. And this is week 19 of fantasy hockey. That's going to be the 19th through the 25th. There are 13 teams with 4 games. We're not going to list them because that's nearly half the league. But Pittsburgh and Carolina are the 2 teams that only play 2 games. So let's look at some forwards, defensemen, goalies to add, some guys to keep an eye on, some guys to drop. I actually threw in a couple extras in here, Tone, so go for it.
I see that. Because you threw in extras, I had to really scrounge for some of my guys.
Oh, sorry.
No, don't be. It's good. It's good. Give everybody options.
Yeah.
All right, at forward, I am looking at the Washington Capitals next week. Anybody in their top 6 that you can add. Tom Wilson, 35% owned. He should be owned in penalty minutes and hits leagues for sure. But if you don't use PIMS, he's still a great ad. Washington's schedule next week should see them put up big points. They're at Buffalo and at Florida, but then they get Tampa Bay and Buffalo again at home as well.
Yeah. I like them.
With Buffalo twice, Florida once, they're terrible teams. I'd say yes, please, to anybody in the top 6. If Wilson is taken, I would think about Brett Conley, 0% owned, but he has 14 goals on the season. I know he only has 4 assists, but he's recently been moved onto the second line with Kuznetsov and Oshie. Plus, he gets second unit power play time. He's got 1 goal, 1 assist in his last 2 games since he's been moved up. And remember, Tom Wilson does not play on either of the power plays. So, yeah, I don't think you can go wrong adding a Washington top 6 next week.
Yeah. I like it.
All right. Like it. What say you, Brian?
I am going with my Buffalo Sabres. And 2 names here. And obviously one of them is most likely going to be owned, but it's worth a shot putting his name out there. The Sabres with 4 games next week. Like you mentioned, 2 of them against the Caps. They also have the Red Wings and the Bruins. You get the nice Monday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday. So some days there where you might not have starters otherwise. But Ryan O'Reilly is only 54% owned, and that's criminal right now given the way that he's playing. Now, I understand a lot of the folks in the leagues or our listeners are in leagues that are likely make up this 54%. So very unlikely that he'll be available in your league unless you have a 10-teamer, maybe available in some 12-teamers if people got impatient. But right now, O'Reilly just on fire and playing huge minutes now that Eichel has been hurt and really picking up the slack in those games since Eichel's injury. And it's almost as if he's kind of stepping into the void and realizing he's going to have to do a little more, not rely on Eichel as much. And the past, what do we have here? Past 11 games for O'Reilly. So it actually goes back even prior to Eichel's injury. But past 11 games, 7 goals, 6 assists during that time. But during Eichel's absence, a goal and 2 assists in both games. And the other night against Tampa, 25 minutes of ice time as a forward. Just absolutely insane. So as long as he doesn't wear out and collapse from exhaustion, then he'll be fine. And the other is Sam Reinhart, like I said, 34% owned. We've talked about keeping an eye on him. The time to grab him is now, also with Eichel out, and Sam is 6 goals, 8 assists during the same past 11 games. And both these guys playing well, I think, are going to be able to continue performing at this level while we're missing Eichel. And again, 4 games to continue to put up some numbers here coming up.
I was asked over the weekend, actually in our GroupMe app, Sam Reinhart or Kevin LeBanc. And I said Sam Reinhart for sure. I love the way he's been playing. He's been on fire. Somebody said, made a good case. They made a very strong case for LeBanc. I said, go Sam. They went Sam. Reinhart, 1 assist, 2 goals. LeBanc, 1 assist.
Yeah.
So,
and then Reinhart, he's going to continue to play those top minutes, top power play unit. No reason not to add him at 34% with 4 games coming up next week.
Nope, they need him. All right, on to defensemen. And I am going to go to the New York Islanders, even though they only play 3 games next week. Ryan Pulock, 6% owned, and he's not getting the attention he deserves.
No.
Like I said, 3 games next week. The schedule's not the easiest, but he's been really, really good. He put up the 7th most shots on goal for defensemen in the last 2 weeks with 21. That's in 3 games. I'm sorry, not 3 games. That's in 7 games. 21 shots on goal in 7 games. He's on the second unit power play. He's getting 22 minutes plus a night. I know I'm going out on a limb here, but even if the points don't come, his 1 hit per game and his 1.5 blocks per game for the season is enough to make me take a chance, because I know at least I'm getting something for him, even if the points aren't there. But with the amount that he's shooting the puck, the dam's got to break at some point. So Ryan Pulock, that's where I'm headed. What about you, Brian? Defensive help, where are we looking?
I've actually got 2 guys, and this was in doing my research. I couldn't pick, and I figured why not go with both? Like I said, next week we're off, so not a bad idea to grab both these guys, especially since they're both bringing different skill sets to the table. But the first is Mark Borowiecki of Ottawa, 7% owned. We talked Dion Phaneuf, no longer on the team.
Gone.
So potentially Borowiecki gets some additional playing time out of this deal now that he's healthy, and he's back to being an absolute monster on hits. Past 10 games, 50 hits.
Wow.
And just some crazy games in there. I think he had one that was 11, but some 7s, 5s, 6s. It's just crazy. 50 hits in 10 games. I mean, averaging 5 a game. That's just outstanding for those types of leagues. Actually also putting out some offensive stats too. Assists in 3 straight games, 16 shots on goal in the past 10 games. So with an potential increased role, I like what you could get for Borowiecki as your 5th defenseman. Plug him in there on those days that you need the physicality and you need to make up those categories. So the other player, Tone, is quietly kind of having himself a career year here, or could have himself a career year, and that is Alex Goligoski of the Arizona Coyotes.
Yotes, go Yotes, man.
15% owned, and he has a goal in 3 straight games, 7 points in the past week, and as I said, on pace to top his career best season, which was 42 points. So that was nearly 4 years ago when he was in Dallas. And historically, I looked up these stats because I was like, well, can he beat this? And I looked it up, and February and March are by far his most productive months. So you've got the rest of this month and then March to enjoy what for Goligoski has been kind of hooked up to the juvenation machine. I mean, he's got 30 points so far, and like I said, the career high of 42. So within distance, I mean, it's there for him.
I looked at Goligoski, and then I saw that on the sheet that you had picked him. So that was good. I'm glad that you added him. Goligoski is one of those strange guys. I wonder what the trade market for him is. With Arizona being brutal, they're looking to move pieces out. You would think a guy like Goligoski would be somebody that they'd be looking to move since, I mean, let's face it, they're years away. I mean, even Max Domi's name has been floated. So if he goes somewhere where he can play with better players,
someone with playoff experience, someone who has been in different situations around the league, a veteran presence, someone who can bring offense from the blue line. That's a pretty hot commodity come trade deadline.
Was he on one of the Pittsburgh Cup team, the first Pittsburgh Cup team with Crosby? I can't remember.
Yeah, let's see.
I don't know. But he's played he Pittsburgh, Dallas, high offensive systems, and that 42 points, remember, that was one of the historically best offensive teams that the NHL's seen in the last 15 years. So
to answer your question, yes, he was a member of the 2009 Penguins winning team and made it because of injuries to some other guys. So he got called up and
played. I thought he played.
Yeah. He was on that for the entire season until he got moved. He was in the, what a deal that this was, Goligoski and to Dallas in exchange for James Neal and Matt Niskanen.
Good Lord.
I know. I swear Pittsburgh has pulled off trades over the years that you just shake your head. You're like, how did you get away with that?
It's almost the Philip Forsberg for Martin Rat. Nothing tops that. I don't care what anybody says. So, all right, goaltenders.
Well, and also Goligoski signed through 2020.
Yeah, so he's got 2 years left on his deal.
Yeah, but that's nice to know that you're not just getting a rental, you're actually getting some guy. So it's good for Arizona that he has a little more value and that whatever team wants him can have him for the playoffs and for another year or two.
All right, so after this,
they can flip him. So anyway, sorry to spend so much time on Alex Goligoski.
That's okay. It's stuff people need to know.
They do.
All right, goaltenders. I am looking at Anton Khudobin, 23% owned. The Bruins get 2 back-to-back games next week, and Khudobin should most likely play at Edmonton and at Buffalo.
Yeah.
Those two teams, I'll happily take a chance on the Bruins' backup goaltender.
Yeah,
Khudobin has played well when he's gotten the start. He has 12 wins on the season and hasn't given up more than 3 goals since December 14th, and that's 8 straight games. And in those 8 games, he has 1 shutout and has only given up 3 goals 3 times. The fact is, he's a big reason the Bruins have one of the best records in the NHL right now. When your backup goaltender is winning double-digit games like that, and he filled in well for Rask, so he's a big reason they are where they are. So I'd love Khudobin this week.
Yeah. All right, my addition is going to be Michael Neuvirth. We talked about the injury to Brian Elliott. Neuvirth's going to have to be the man. Unfortunately, I recommended him like a month ago, Tone, when Elliott kind of hit the skids. They looked like they started to put Neuvirth in. They did, and he did not respond. He's actually played pretty poorly. So I trust that our listeners are savvy enough to have added him and dropped him pretty quickly in response to that. But you look at the games coming up, and they've got the Rangers Sunday, like I said. So you could use him Sunday if you can add him. Not a shabby ad for a game for a spot start Sunday. Then you get the Canadiens, Blue Jackets, Sens, and Canadiens in the next 4 games for the Flyers. So
that sounds like wins.
Yeah, I mean, 3 of those games, pretty low scoring teams in Ottawa and Montreal. The Blue Jackets, you never know what you're getting out of that team. I just saw this on the Twitter while we were talking, Tone, that the Blue Jackets had 56 shots on goal tonight against Toronto and lost, and they had 91 shot attempts. It's bonkers. And they only scored 3. Lost.
Babcock must be losing his hair.
Torts.
Wins or no wins.
No. I get. Oh, you mean it the other way around? Yeah, Babcock. Flipping out at that. Yeah, you're probably right.
Win or not, you give up that many shot attempts and that many shots on goal. You're bag skate.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah.
All right, go for it.
All right.
Who are you keeping an eye on?
Okay. This one's tough for me because I love this kid in Chicago, Alex DeBrincat, 25% owned. And the only reason I'm not saying to add him right away is because even though he has 7 goals and 2 assists in his last 9 games, And over the last 2 weeks, he's put up 28 shots on goal, 6 most shots on goal in the NHL over that span. Despite all of that, Quenneville moved him down to the third line in favor of everybody's favorite player, Tommy Wingels.
Oh.
All right. And they also took DeBrincat off the power play completely. But if that changes over the weekend, then I'm going to add him right away. Chicago has 3 home games in a row against LA, Ottawa, San Jose, and then their 4th game next week is at Columbus.
Yeah.
So as bad as Chicago's been, it's not like those teams are world killers right now. I would happily add DeBrincat right away if it looks like this is only a 1 or a 2 game, skid. The kid's got 21 goals on the season. I mean, he can score. If he moves back up and gets on one of those power play units, I'm adding him again for sure.
All right. What
about you? Who are you looking to keep an eye on?
I have 2 keep an eye ons. One in a good way, one in a bad way. The first one, we'll go with the good first, and that's Timo Meier of the San Jose Sharks. We talked about Tomas Hertl being injured. Meier, who has been actually playing fantastic in the month of February with 3 goals, 2 assists in the Sharks' 7 games this month. He could potentially move up and play a bigger role. You look at his shots on goal this month, just terrific. And this is someone with a pretty high pedigree that the Sharks have been waiting and kind of, I don't want to say that they've been babying him, but easing him into the lineup. And maybe it's that he hasn't produced, but I feel like they have a short leash on a lot of their young players over the past few years. And I think kind of, he's shown he's 14 goals on the year, and like I said, 3 of those are this month, and I think he had another one right before the turn of the calendar, so almost like 4 goals in the past 10 games, so not too shabby out of Meier. So again, keep an eye on him. If he all of a sudden bumps up to that top line, like you were saying with DeBrincat, I definitely would grab Meier.
With Hertl's injury, it looks like Meier's going to skate with Pavelski and Donskoy.
That's not awful either.
No, that's the top line now.
All right.
With
so then
Pavelski, Donskoy, and Meier
are
line 2. And
there you go.
With Hertl hurt, it wouldn't surprise me to see Meier step into that first power play unit.
Well, that's exactly. So, yeah, maybe it's more not only is he getting to skate alongside Pavelski, but does he get the special teams time and the power play time, which would be just huge with some of the talent with Burns, Pavelski, Couture, whoever else they're throwing out there. But if Meier's the other guy, then even better situation for him.
Absolutely. All right.
So the other guy to keep an eye on, and I wanted to drop him, and I couldn't bring myself to do it. And the only reason is because the LA Kings have 8 games coming up, 4 games each of the next 2 weeks. And so Tyler Toffoli gets a stay of execution, if you will. He had a great December tone, 6 goals in December, looking like the Tyler Toffoli we all wanted when we drafted him, right? Well, he followed that up with 1 goal in January, and now he has only 1 goal in February. So it's kind of like you've got 1, maybe 2 matchups. Again, we talked about it a little while ago. Only a few weeks left before playoffs. I can't have dead weight when I'm trying to win matchups and trying to win the league. So Toffoli, this is one of those where your name is holding a lot of value, and it's going to be similar to the guy that you're dropping, that sometimes you got to make tough calls. And I think this is with Toffoli, you're getting 4 games this week, and that might not be enough to let you go. So keep an eye on Toffoli. If hopefully he can start producing.
Yeah, Toffoli's one of those guys, before I just outright drop him, I'm looking to trade him because somebody, name recognition alone, somebody's going to give you something.
That's how I feel about your drop, Tone.
And
we can actually say that about your drop. We can say it about Toffoli, and we can say it about the guy that I want to drop as well. So I think all these guys are droppable, but I think first you want to float their name in some trade offers, even if it's the second guy in a 2-for-1, so you can upgrade. I think their names will go a long way in getting your trades approved. So with that, I give you Tony Healey's drop of the week.
None other than Brian's Buffalo Sabre, Evander Kane, who is 85% owned. And listen, I get it. The guy hits a ton. He hits like a truck, and he's got the ability to score goals fast. Well, he has 3 goals in December, 1 goal in January, and 2 so far in February. Since January 1st, he has 1 assist.
Yeah.
I know he gives you shots on goals and hits, but at this point, he's streamer eligible. He's matchup dependent. If I can move him for a top 50 player on name recognition, I'm happily going to make that move.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, he's not holding his value. He's got 18 goals on the season, and I believe he had 15 in the first 2 months.
Yeah.
So it hurts, but you're not getting the Kane that you thought you were going to get.
No, not at all. And there are so many guys that, like you said, around him if you were to tell me that if I offered Evander Kane and for your Yanni Gourde, to a team that needed shots on goal and hits, they have similar numbers: 18 goals, 20 assists for Kane, 22 goals and 21 assists for Gourde. But the big difference is in plus minus, a huge swing there, 40-point difference there. It's crazy. Similar power play points, but then you have Kane with 206 shots on goal, Gourde 97, Kane 111 hits, Gourde 39. If you need the goals, just based on the way that Gourde has been playing, Kane did all that damage in October and November.
Yeah, 12
Gourde's
goals
been
in
the
October
one that's playing well lately. So you're selling low and buying high. I mean, I get it, but there's only so many weeks left in the year. I can't stress that enough. Yeah.
So I'm not saying outright drop. I'm saying trade up.
Yeah,
I don't know how else, and you should be able to with his name recognition.
Yeah. All right, my guy could be a straight drop because I think there's enough owners out there that are going to see the same numbers that you folks are, and that's Kyle Turris of the Nashville Predators, someone who started out great. And you remember back when the Preds first acquired him, and their line that I think, who was it, Fiala, Turris, and Craig Smith at the time were playing outstanding. Turris had 3 goals in December. Well, 3 points total in January, and now this month he has 1 lowly assist. So this is, again, someone that we're holding on to for past production, but when you're talking about 4 points in the calendar year, that's not enough to hang on to when you're desperate to get in the playoffs, when you're desperate to win in the playoffs. So name recognition, does it get you something in return? Yeah, maybe you need a 4th defenseman that can bring you some of those banger categories and stats. Fine, make the move. But historically, his best month has been March, but do you want to wait around for that? I mean, that's fantasy hockey playoffs. I mean, are you going to just put him on your bench and hope that he comes back around to form? I'm not.
The only saving grace he might have is that he's back with Craig Smith and Fiala now that Forsberg's back in the lineup.
Yeah.
So maybe they can rekindle that magic, that magical month.
Maybe.
I mean, maybe they can, maybe they can't. Who knows? But Kyle Turris has always been better defensively than offensively. But
then he's shown sparks. You remember him last year in the playoffs in Ottawa, and he was all over the place and was a great first line center for them.
I
don't know.
Shocking.
I'm not keeping him.
No,
not keeping him.
I'm with you. No, I think he's droppable for sure. But like we said, he's definitely tradable.
Yeah, I think all 3 of these guys easily could be included in trade offers or traded straight up in hopes that you can land someone that coming into the year certainly was a significantly lower ranked player. And you realize listening to this show or doing your own research, seeing the trends on these guys, one guy's going in one direction, one's going the other. Use the name recognition in your favor to get you someone that is trending in the right direction come playoff time.
Okay. Now that we've gotten our ad drops for next week, there was one piece of news that we needed to discuss briefly. Brian, what sort of fantasy impact do you see from the Dion Phaneuf trade? Do you see anything at all? Does it help him? I don't think it helps him.
No, not necessarily. I mean, the Kings play the style they play, and their offense is obviously not good, but.
Well, I mean, Phaneuf was getting power play time in Ottawa. He's not going to get it now.
Right. So probably a a decline in fantasy value, but I don't think a lot of people were rostering him for points to begin with.
No.
So,
well, but you have big hits blocks guys with Muzzin and Alec Martinez already, and Drew Doughty for that matter.
Yeah.
I mean, his playing time's got to go down, right?
Sure.
So I think it hurts him.
Not a very fantasy relevant trade.
No, and I want no part of Marian Gaborik either.
No, Gaborik has been.
I'm just thinking about him playing under Guy Boucher's system, and I'm like, I know he's been in LA under Suter, but
no, he's not going to know what the hell to do.
No, not at all. So. All right, now, Brian, why don't you give these folks the Beer League Player of the Week?
All right, this is a good one, and I dug up a little nugget in coming up with this week's Beer League Player of the Week, but it is Patrice Bergeron of the Boston Bruins. 5 goals, 2 assists over the past 7 days. Some great performances, 17 shots on goal during that. I have to give him his props because he's going to hit 30 goals soon. He was a player that I was not high on coming into the year, but again, the guy just, I don't know what it is. He's a clutch player, and for someone who he seems inconsistent, but in a weird way consistent. I don't know if that makes sense. It's like his goals fluctuate, but he's just, I don't know, face off, shots on goal, consistent. Maybe the goals themselves not consistent. So anyway, check this out. He's going to hit 30 goals, right? Going back to December, Patrice Bergeron has 22 goals since the beginning of that month. During that stretch, the Bruins have won all but 1 game.
That is unbelievable.
So when he scores, they win. So 22 goals for Bergeron, and you go back and look at the games. I mean, he had that crazy four-goal game. He scored 2 a couple times, sprinkle 1 here and there. I think he had another hat trick somewhere else in there. But you look at those games, and the Bruins lost only 1 of the games that he scored in. So when he's getting it done, it's usually a good thing for the Bruins.
You know, it's hysterical because he was one of my ads in that industry league last year. He was one of my first picks. And it was a total points league, and I was all excited, and he was killing me to start the season. Well, Go look at his second half of the season last year because all his production was then. He still put up 302 shots on goal last year. The problem was he only shot at 7%. So
yeah. Well, see, maybe that was the thing, is that he's getting his shots. It just he wasn't converting them last year, and this year he is. So
oh, absolutely. So Patrice Bergeron.
Not too shabby. So all right, Tom, that's it. That's our show for the week, and enjoy your vacation. Get a tan.
I will. You know what? I'll say hi to Mickey Mouse for you.
All right. You're doing a little race while you're down there too.
Yeah,
right?
I'm gonna run a race.
Training.
Yeah, my wife, my 9-year-old, and myself, we're gonna run a 5K, and then my wife actually stepped it up, and she's gonna run a 10K the next day on Saturday.
Nice. Wow.
It ought to be interesting.
Buy her some gel packs.
I'm gonna have to
like those little
buy her ice for the plane ride home that afternoon.
Yeah, that's true. Buy her some booze too.
Oh yeah.
She's gonna earn herself a few drinks there. So
yeah.
All right, well, good luck to you in that. And like I said, enjoy the warm weather down south. I'm gonna do so myself. Play a little golf.
Nice.
Catch some rays, a little vitamin D. I need it. I'm looking pasty.
Any major courses?
No, nothing crazy. Just some little local ones. But, I'm not going to go to like high-end, expensive ones and then being groundskeepers with drives. I'm going to avoid
that. The fact that happened in real life is shocking. I didn't know if you were going to have a repeat of Pebble Beach.
I'm not. Right? Well, not right now. I have my fingers crossed that my buddy is going to be invited back to the same event we went to last year, and that I will be able to go to Pebble again this year to play it. That was in March of last year, so I keep fingers crossed. In fact, we were talking, the friend of mine who got me on last week was the PGA Tour was in Pebble, and we were texting back and forth about watching some of the tournament and just remembering where we had hit shots on holes and just like being completely like just starstruck at how these guys played holes that were obviously as like complete duffers that you're just like, how did they do that? And then funny to see when those guys mess up that you're like, oh, I played that hole better than you. Not that ever matters, but that's the fun thing about the Pro-Am too, is that they have guys out there that Tony Romo was out there. Larry Fitzgerald won it, the wide receiver of the Cardinals. He was only the second athlete to the first one since your boy Dan Marino.
Well, everybody thinks that Tony Romo should get his tour card.
I have read that.
He can.
I think he has a sponsor's exemption to an upcoming tour event. I forget what one it is, though.
It's unreal.
So,
I haven't decided if I'm ever going to play.
Which would make sense.
Yeah. No, I haven't decided if I'm going to play golf again. Since the last time I played with you, that's the best round I think I've ever had.
Out at that. Yeah, I know.
I mean, that back nine was on freaking real. I think I don't even remember what it was, but it was ridiculous.
No, you were playing well.
So, yeah, let's hope that happens again.
Yeah, my brother did that too as well. I think he wanted to hang him up, and he's unfortunately played since. So it was like last summer, played around with him, and just unbelievable, and just asking him where the hell it was coming from. And when you're playing like that, you don't ask questions. You just play.
You just play.
Well,
that's right.
He went back out, and it all fell apart. So, all right, let's get the hell out of here.
All right, folks, if you enjoyed the show, please rate and review us on iTunes or wherever you listen to us. And remember, you can find all of our shows and all of the other great ITL fantasy podcasts on the ITL homepage, inthisleague.com. Please, folks, go check out their new fantasy baseball book, 99 Player Debates. It's got a lot of awesome stuff in it. Bogman and the Welsh have outdone themselves this year. They're really pushing fantasy baseball pretty hard right now. Pitchers and catchers just reported, so if you're out of it in your hockey league, I'm not saying to stop paying attention, but maybe you should start paying attention to baseball. Don't forget to check out our friends at the Grandstand Sports Network. You can find our partners online at grandstandsportsnetwork.com and on Twitter at grandstand_SN. And you can support our podcast by becoming a patron of the show. Visit our page to see all the great extra benefits we give to our generous donors. That's patreon.com//Roto Hockey Show. And like I said, Sunday streamers, ad drops for the next week. Go become a patron. You're going to get that stuff. And I might actually upload a little video from Disney World.
All right.
I think I'm gonna do that on the Patreon page this week. So. I bet you will.
Right.
You'll be on the golf course watching my video.
That sounds good to me.
Well, it's better than in your bedroom watching my video.
Awkward. All right. Well, if you want to follow us these upcoming weeks and you don't do so already, as you're heading into the fantasy hockey playoffs at Roto Hockey Show, we are happy to help you with ad drop advice, streaming advice, you name it. At Roto Hockey Show. You can also follow Tony at T_LOC11. You can follow me at NHL Roto. If you want to get into the mailbag, the listener mailbag, we're going to have a lot of trade questions, I have a feeling, when we get back from vacation. And we will answer all of them, and then we'll include them in the podcast when we return. NHL Roto Tony at gmail.com and NHL Roto Brian at gmail.com. See y'all in 2 weeks.